The first day's fighting was essentially about the town itself, and it featured Richard Ewell's command. And actually, Ewell and Hill arrived at Gettysburg coming from different directions, fortunately at roughly the same time. And so the leading elements of the Confederate Army came from two different directions and actually caught the Federals in a vice. They fought stubbornly, but it was rather clear that they were going to have to withdraw from the town, and they did. And then their question arose as to what to do next. Ewell decided to consolidate what he had and to remain in Gettysburg, the town, and not to pursue the fleeing Federals to the heights of Cemetery Hill and Cemetery Ridge and Culp's Hill, too. Ewell relied on Lee's admonition not to have a general battle before the entire army was up. That is, his army was concentrated. Ewell fell back upon this, even though one of his staff officers repeatedly offered to lead a charge on this high ground, and first asked for a division, then asked for a brigade, and finally agreed to do it with a regiment, which is roughly 1,000 men. By this time, most Confederate regiments were considerably less than 1,000 men, actually, perhaps a few hundred men. At any rate, Ewell determined to stay and consolidate what he already had. And so by the time Lee arrived and Longstreet's corps began arriving, the situation was that the United States had the heights around Gettysburg, and more troops were coming in. No one knew how many troops, because no one knew where Stuart was, and it was Stuart's job to find out where the Union Army was and in what strength. Civil War cavalries, unlike cavalry in earlier wars, were vital before a battle ever started, made considerably less contribution to the army once the battle had started than they did before the battle began. Because the primary objective was to control that ground that lay between the two armies and find out what the enemy was doing and deny the enemy any information as to what the friendly forces were up to. Stuart had not provided this information this time, and so Lee never knew how many Federals were up there. He could tell, obviously from the fighting, that Meade was there in strength. He also knew that Meade was there and not Hooker, that Meade had replaced Hooker, and indeed responded when told of this, that General Meade will make no mistake, and if I make a mistake, he will be quick to take advantage of it, or words to that effect. Lee had respect for Meade because the two had known each other in the United States Army, as did many of the commanders in the Civil War. So the first day's fighting wound down with the Confederates holding the town of Gettysburg and beginning to array themselves around the high ground, and indeed did not know how far the Union formation went. Where is the Union battle line became the first question to ask. No one knew, in part because Stuart was a long way away at this time, and no one knew because they had just arrived on the scene.